It's time for Overcoming Hurdles this October as we honor both National Women's Small Business Month and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. One woman embodies the strength and purpose behind both. Melissa Franks went from surviving an abusive relationship to thriving as a C-suite executive, and now she's helping women entrepreneurs build their businesses with confidence and clarity. And today she joins me not only to share her story, but to offer some good advice for those business owners as well. Good morning to you, Melissa.
Good morning.
So glad to have you on the show. Thanks for being here. A lot of domestic violence survivors suffer in silence. So what made you want to be so open, so vulnerable, and share your story and your experience?
I carried a lot of shame with what was happening in my life. I was climbing the corporate ladder. Heck, I was sprinting up it. And at the same time, I had this horrible home life that nobody knew anything about. And I'm now on a mission to be an example for other women like me to know that they're not alone and that there is a way and to get through and a life after when they're ready to make a change.
Yes, indeed. Well, I think it's easy for people to say, right, especially on the outside, that would never happen to me or I don't get it. But they forget that many abusers don't start off being extremely violent. Sometimes it increasingly gets worse over time. Is that what happened with your situation?
It is. And what's shocking is that our frame of reference for domestic violence or domestic abuse is physical. It's somebody ending up in the hospital or having an injury that we can see. The reality is that that is multifaceted. It can be things like name calling and restricting your access to your social circle, or getting in there and making it difficult for you to spend money on things that you want to spend money on. It happens slowly over time. And by the time it gets to a place where you can actually name it, because that's the only thing that we see in the public, what you realize is you had years of abuse leading up to it that you were just writing off as bad behavior.
I see. I think a lot of times when women are ready to leave and they just don't know how or what avenue to take, I mean, families come into play, children come into play. I mean, you yourself are a single mother of 3 boys, or at least you knew you were going to be when you left. Were there any fears in that?
Absolutely. And my biggest concern was safety, because in 2017, I knew I needed to leave, and my children were 4, 6, and 8. I also knew the reality of the family court system and that there would be 50-50 custody. And I didn't feel comfortable that they would be safe when I wasn't around. And that really led my decision making. And I think sometimes we think about safety just as the adult in the equation, and often the children are the ones that are most vulnerable, and women are making decisions to ensure that they're protected over themselves.
Yes, indeed. Well, in 2022, this was so important to you that you left the corporate world on a mission to support small businesses. What hurdles came with that leap of faith? Why did you want to take a different direction?
I knew that I needed to materially change my professional life in order to exit the situation in my personal life. And so that meant leaving the corporate world where I spent most of my time traveling and really focused on the small business space. Now, what I didn't realize at the time was I had an identity that was tied to corporate Melissa. That network was encapsulated in that environment. And so when I made my pivot, I had to really reinvent myself and go on a self-discovery around who I was, who the new professional was, as well as who I actually was as an adult outside of the relationship.
Yes, indeed. I think that's hard sometimes to find your identity outside. I think a lot of women struggle with that. So how did your experience of rebuilding from trauma, shape the way you lead and coach other women today who are going through those same things?
The very first thing that we do with anybody that we speak with, coach, work with as a client is get really down to what life they want. Being able to get really clear on what you're working towards, because then that becomes your North Star for every decision you make. It becomes incredibly easy to say, if I make this decision and I head in this direction, does it get me closer or farther away? And so we really focus on that. The other thing as well is we get everybody really comfortable with saying the word no. We get so wrapped up in what we should be doing or what other people think that we should be doing that we'll say yes to many things that often get us distracted or send us in the wrong direction. And so those two things together unlock amazing success, both in the business and the professional space.
This is great advice. I want to ask though, for women watching who maybe still in survival mode or they're trying to figure out how to get out, whether that's in life or even in business, what's one small step that they can take right now today to start moving forward to empowerment and independence?
It's to educate yourself. I spent about 6 years really investigating what the family court system looked like. I spent a lot of time investigating what my professional options were. So go acquire knowledge, find the experts in the space and ask them questions. Getting the information is going to help you build a plan, whether you need one professionally or personally, to take the steps necessary when it's the right time for you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us and being vulnerable this morning and sharing your story. We greatly appreciate you.
Thank you.